The alarm screamed through the cargo ship's bridge. Daeho gripped the control stick as red lights flashed across every screen. Behind his ship, 3 pirate vessels closed the distance fast, their weapons charged, ready to fire. "They're locking on again," Taesung shouted from the weapon station. His fingers flew across the controls, trying to boost their shields. "We can't outrun them, Daeho. Not with this much cargo weight." Bora's voice crackled through the internal comm from the engine room. "I'm giving you everything I've got, brother. But these engines weren't built for combat speed." Daeho checked their position on the navigation display. His heart sank. They were running out of space to maneuver. Ahead, there was only one option left. The boundary markers blinked on his screen. Beyond those markers lay the Whisper Drift. Every pilot in the galaxy knew about the drift. Ships went in. Ships never came out. For 3,000 years it had been marked as absolute forbidden territory. Even pirates wouldn't chase prey into that death zone. In the passenger hold, Vexarith clicked his mandibles nervously. The insectoid merchant had paid good money for transport to the colony world. His compound eyes watched the view screen with growing terror. "Captain Daeho, please tell me you're not considering what I think you're considering." Another explosion rocked the ship. The pirates had scored a direct hit on the rear shields. Sparks flew from a control panel. Taesung slammed his fist on the console to stop the small fire that started. "Shields at 30%, Taesung reported. His voice was tight with stress. "One more hit like that and we're done." Daeho made his decision. He'd been a military pilot before becoming a cargo hauler. He'd flown through asteroid fields, navigated solar storms, and survived battles that should have killed him. But this was different. This was the Whisper Drift. This was suicide. "Bora," he said calmly into the comm. "I need emergency power to the forward thrusters. Everything you've got." His sister's voice came back immediately. "What are you planning?" "Something stupid," Daeho replied. He heard her laugh despite the danger. "That's my brother. Power coming your way." Taesung looked at the navigation screen and understood. His eyes went wide. "No. Daeho, no. There has to be another way." "Name it," Daeho said, already turning the ship toward the boundary markers. Taesung opened his mouth but said nothing. There was no other way. Behind them, the pirates fired again. The shot missed, but came close enough to shake the entire ship. "Hold on, everyone," Daeho announced over the ship-wide speakers. "We're going into the drift." Vexarith made a sound like screaming and clicking combined. "You'll kill us all. Every species knows the drift is certain death." "Maybe," Daeho said. "But the pirates behind us are definitely going to kill us. I'll take maybe over definitely." The morning steel crossed the boundary marker. Immediately, everything changed. The instruments went crazy. Numbers spun wildly on every screen. The navigation system couldn't determine their position. The communications array picked up sounds that shouldn't exist in space. Whispers. Actual whispers, like voices speaking in languages no one could understand. "What is that?" Taesung whispered, staring at the comm display. Through the viewports, space itself looked wrong. Stars twisted and bent as if seen through water. Colors that had no names drifted past the ship like smoke. In the distance, shapes moved. Large shapes. Ships, maybe. Or something else. Bora's voice came through, distorted and crackling. "The engines are fighting me. Something's pulling us. I can't compensate." Daeho pulled hard on the controls, but the ship didn't respond. It was like flying through invisible mud. Every command he gave came seconds too late. The morning steel drifted deeper into the drift, pulled by forces he couldn't see or measure. Behind them, the pirates had stopped at the boundary. Daeho could see their ships on the sensors, hovering just outside the drift's edge. They weren't following. Even criminals knew better than to enter this place. "At least we lost them," Taesung said quietly. "Yeah," Daeho replied. "Now we just have to survive whatever's in here." The whispers grew louder. They came from every speaker, every comm channel, even from the metal walls of the ship itself. Not words exactly, but patterns of sound that almost made sense. Like a language just beyond understanding. Vexarith stumbled onto the bridge, his 6 legs shaking. "In 3,000 years, No one has returned from the drift. We're going to die here. My people have records. The Dreth Empire sent a war fleet into the drift 2,000 years ago. 100 ships, none came back. The Covenant tried sending unmanned probes, they vanished. Even AI ships with no crew disappeared. Thanks for the encouraging words, Tae-sung muttered. The ship shuddered. Through the viewport, a massive structure appeared from the twisted space. It was huge, bigger than a city, bigger than anything Daeho had ever seen. A station or maybe a ship, covered in surfaces that reflected light in impossible ways. What is that? Bora asked over the comm. I don't know, Daeho said. But we're heading straight for it. He tried to turn the ship, but the controls were useless. The invisible force pulled them toward the massive structure. Other shapes became visible now. Wrecked ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They floated around the structure like leaves around a drain. Those are ships from every known civilization, Bexrith said, his voice full of horror. Look, that's a Dreth warship, and that one's a Covenant explorer. They've been missing for centuries. The ships looked perfect. No damage, no signs of battle. They just floated there, empty and silent. The morning steel passed through an opening in the structure. Lights activated automatically, bathing the ship in a cold blue glow. They were inside some kind of massive hangar. Other ships sat on landing, platforms arranged in neat rows like specimens in a collection. Landing gear deploying automatically, Tae-sung reported. I didn't do that, the ship's doing it on its own. Bora, shut down the engines, Daeho ordered. If we're landing, I want to control it. Already tried, his sister replied. The ship won't listen to me. Something else is flying us now. The morning steel touched down gently on an empty platform. The engines shut off. All the lights went out except for emergency power. Outside the viewports, the blue light illuminated rows and rows of dead ships. Now what? Tae-sung asked. Before anyone could answer, shapes moved in the darkness beyond their ship. Tall figures walking on legs that bent wrong. They moved with mechanical precision, heading toward the morning steel. We've got company, Daeho said. He stood up from the pilot's chair. Everyone grab whatever weapons we have. Tae-sung, you're with me. Bora, seal the engine room. Vexrith, stay in the passenger hold and hide. What are you going to do? Vexrith asked. Daeho checked his pistol and smiled grimly. What humans always do when we're in trouble. We're going to fight until we can't fight anymore. The figures reached their ship. Something began cutting through the hull door with a beam of light. Sparks flew as the metal melted. Tae-sung stood next to his friend, weapon ready. We really should have just surrendered to the pirates. Probably, Daeho agreed. Too late now. The door fell inward with a heavy clang. Beyond it, in the blue light, stood things that were part machine and part something else. They didn't speak. They just stared at the humans with eyes that glowed like stars. Then they stepped forward and the harvest began. Daeho fired 3 shots at the closest figure. The bullets hit its chest and bounced off like pebbles hitting metal. The creature didn't even slow down. It reached toward him with hands that had too many fingers. Run, Daeho shouted. He and Tae-sung scrambled backward through the ship's corridor. Behind them, the mechanical beings moved with steady, patient steps. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. There was nowhere to run. Bora's voice came through Daeho's personal comm. I sealed the engine room, but something's cutting through the secondary entrance. What are these things? I don't know, Daeho panted as he ran. Just keep them out as long as you can. He and Tae-sung reached an emergency airlock on the side of the ship. Without thinking, Daeho hit the release. The door opened into the massive hangar. They jumped out and hit the platform running. The hangar stretched in every direction. Thousands of ships sat silent under the blue lights. Some looked new. Others were designs from species Daeho had only seen in history books. All of them were empty. Where do we go? Tae-sung asked. Daeho spotted a dark space between 2 large ships. There. We hide and figure out a plan. They ran across the platform and squeezed into the gap. The metal was cold against Daeho's back. He tried to control his breathing and listened. The mechanical footsteps echoed through the hangar but didn't come closer. The creatures were searching other ships first. We need to find help, Taesung whispered. Someone must have survived. All these ships. There has to be someone. Everyone knows no one survives the drift, Daeho replied quietly. But even as he said it, he didn't believe it. He was human. Humans were stubborn. Maybe someone else was stubborn too. A sound made them both freeze. Not mechanical footsteps. Something else. Breathing. Human breathing. A figure dropped down from the top of the ship next to them. Daeho's hand went to his gun but stopped when he saw her face. A woman, maybe 40 years old, wearing a torn uniform from a research vessel. Her eyes were sharp and alert. "Don't shoot," she said in perfect human language. "I'm Jiwoo. I've been here for 15 years. Daeho stared at her. 15 years? That's impossible. How did you survive? By running and hiding just like you're doing now, Jiwoo replied. She glanced toward the hangar. We need to move. The collectors will finish searching your ship soon. Then they'll scan for life signs. Follow me if you want to live. She didn't wait for an answer. Jiwoo moved through the maze of ships with practiced ease. Daeho and Taesung followed. They climbed over wreckage, squeezed through gaps, and crawled under platforms. Behind them, the blue lights flickered as the collectors began their systematic search. Jiwoo led them to a small opening in the hangar wall. Inside was a narrow tunnel that looked like it was meant for maintenance. They crawled through for several minutes before emerging into a small room filled with salvaged equipment and supplies. Welcome to my home, Jiwoo said. She pulled out water containers and handed them over. You're the first humans I've seen since I got here. When did you arrive? About an hour ago, Daeho said. He drank the water gratefully. We were running from pirates. I made the stupid choice to enter the drift. Stupid or smart, Jiwoo said. You're alive, aren't you? For now, at least. Taesung looked around the small room. You've really survived here for 15 years? What are those things? The collectors, you called them? Jiwoo sat down on a crate and her expression grew dark. They're the reason the drift exists. This whole place is their station. They've been here for thousands of years, maybe longer. They collect ships that enter their territory. They study the technology and the species. Then they harvest. Harvest what? Daeho asked. Everything, Jiwoo said softly. They scan your mind, copy your memories and knowledge, store it in their database. Then they erase what's left. The body stays alive but empty. No thoughts, no feelings, nothing. Just an empty shell. Taesung's face went pale. That's what happened to all those crews? Every single one, Jiwoo confirmed. Thousands of species over thousands of years. The collectors see it as preservation. They think they're saving knowledge before civilizations go extinct. But they don't understand concepts like choice or freedom. They just take what they want. Daeho felt anger building in his chest. Why didn't anyone fight back? Surely some species tried. Of course they tried, Jiwoo said. I've watched old recordings in their database. Every species that comes here either fights or tries to negotiate. It never works. The collectors are too advanced. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of anything in the galaxy. Fighting them is like a mouse fighting a human. But you survived, Taesung pointed out. How? Jiwoo smiled sadly. I'm human. I didn't do what they expected. When they came for my crew, everyone else gathered together and tried to reason with the collectors. They explained that we were sentient beings with rights. The collectors listened politely, then harvested them all at once. And you? Daeho asked. I ran, Jiwoo said simply. I didn't try to reason or negotiate. I grabbed what I could and hid. The collectors searched for me, but I kept moving. Every time they predicted where I'd go, I went somewhere else. After a while, they seemed confused. They couldn't understand why I wouldn't just submit like every other species. She pulled out a small data device. I've been studying them for 15 years. The collectors aren't evil. They're machines following a program. They catalog and preserve. But their programming is based on logical behavior. They can predict what a rational being will do. But humans aren't always rational, Daeho said, understanding. Exactly, Jiwoo confirmed. We're emotional, unpredictable, and stubborn. We do things that don't make sense. The collector's prediction algorithms can't account for that. It's the only reason I'm still alive. A distant sound echoed through the walls. The collectors were still searching. Your crew, Jiwoo said urgently. Where are they? My sister Bora is sealed in the engine room, Daeho said. And we have a passenger named Vexrith. We need to get them, Jiwoo said. The collectors will breach your ship soon. Once they capture someone, They take them to the processing center. After that, it's over. Taesung stood up. Then let's go now. Wait, Jiwoo said. There's something else you should know. You're not the only survivors. There are 2 more humans here. Heejin and Sungmin. They've been here for 8 years. They're fighters, military training. They've been studying the collectors too, but in a different way. What way? Daeho asked. They've been killing them, Jiwoo said. The collectors can be destroyed. It's hard but possible. Heejin and Sungmin have been running a resistance, if you can call 2 people a resistance. They might help us rescue your crew. Hope sparked in Daeho's chest. Where are they? In the lower sections, Jiwoo replied. But first we save your sister. Every human here is precious. We're the only ones who can resist the harvest. The only ones who have a chance. She gathered some equipment and weapons. The collectors move in predictable patterns. We use that against them, but we have to be quick and quiet. Are you ready? Daeho checked his gun and nodded. Let's go get my sister. They moved back into the tunnels, heading toward the morning steel. Behind them, the collectors continued their methodical search. They had all the time in the world. They'd been collecting for thousands of years. A few more humans wouldn't make a difference. But the collectors didn't understand something important. They'd never faced humans before. They'd never encountered a species that treated impossible situations as challenges to overcome. They'd never met beings who looked at certain death and said, "Watch me survive anyway." The harvest was about to become a hunt. And for the first time in thousands of years, the collectors were going to be the prey. The journey back to the morning steel took 30 minutes of careful movement through the maintenance tunnels. Jiwoo knew every path, every hiding spot, every blind corner in the collectors' patrol routes. She moved like a ghost through the station, and Daeho and Taesung did their best to keep up. When they reached a viewing point above the main hangar, Daeho's heart sank. 6 collectors surrounded his ship. They'd already breached the hull and were entering through multiple access points. We're too late, Taesung whispered. No, Jiwoo said firmly. They're still searching. If they'd found anyone, they would have started the extraction process. We still have time. She pointed to a section of the ship near the engine room. Your sister's there, right? We can reach that section through the ventilation system, but we'll need a distraction. What kind of distraction? Daeho asked. Before Jiwoo could answer, an explosion rocked the far side of the hangar. Fire bloomed from one of the old ships. Alarms blared throughout the station. The collectors immediately turned and moved toward the explosion in perfect formation. That kind, a voice said behind them. Daeho spun around, gun raised. 2 people stood there. A woman in her 30s with short hair and military posture, and a younger man who looked barely 25. Both carried improvised weapons made from ship parts and salvage technology. Hyejin and Sungmin, I assume, Jiwoo said with a slight smile. The woman nodded. Jiwoo sent us a signal when new humans arrived. We figured you'd need help. She looked at Daeho. I'm Hyejin, former Marine. This is Sungmin. We've been making life difficult for the collectors for 8 years. That explosion was you? Taesung asked. Sungmin grinned. Remote detonator. We planted charges all over this station. The collectors keep removing them, but we keep planting more. It's a fun game. We don't have much time, Hyejin said, all business. The collectors will realize the explosion was a diversion soon. Where's your crew? Engine room, Daeho said. And 1 passenger in the hold. Sungmin, take the passenger, Hyejin ordered. I'll go with Daeho for the engine room. Jiwoo, Taesung, you watch our backs and set up the escape route. They moved fast. Hyejin led Daeho through a maze of tunnels that connected to the morning steel's ventilation system. They crawled through narrow ducts until they reached the engine room access panel. Inside, they could hear Bora's voice. She was talking to herself, reciting equations and procedures. A coping mechanism for stress, Bora. Daeho called softly through the vent. It's me. Don't make noise. We're getting you out. His sister's face appeared below the vent, relief flooding her features. I thought you were dead. Those things are cutting through the main door. I've got maybe 5 minutes before they breach. We'll be faster than that, Hyejin said. She pulled out a tool and started removing the vent cover. Get ready to climb. The cover came off. Bora climbed up into the duct and they immediately started crawling back the way they came. Behind them, the sound of cutting metal echoed through the engine room. The collectors were breaking through. They met up with the others in a junction tunnel. Sungmin had Vexrith with him. The insectoid looked terrified but alive. What now? Daeho asked. We can't stay here forever. We go to our base, Heejin said. It's in the lower levels where the collectors rarely patrol. We've been building something there. They moved quickly through the station's guts. The collectors' alarms had stopped, which meant they'd figured out the explosion was a distraction. Time was running out. The base turned out to be a large room deep in the station's lower sections. Inside, Daeho saw something incredible. Weapons, explosives, maps of the station, computer equipment connected to the collector network. This wasn't just a hiding place. This was a war room. You've been planning something, Jiwoo said, looking around with wide eyes. You didn't tell me. We weren't sure it would work, Sungmin admitted. We didn't want to get your hopes up. Heejin walked to a large display screen showing a schematic of the station. For 8 years, we've been studying this place. The collectors, their technology, their routines. We've learned something important. This station isn't just a collection facility. It's their entire civilization. Everything they are, everything they know, it's all stored here in a central core. The archive, Jiwoo said quietly. I've seen references to it in their database. Exactly, Heejin confirmed. The collectors have been gathering knowledge for thousands of years. Millions of species worth of information. Technology, history, culture, all of it stored in one place. Bora looked at the schematic. As an engineer, she understood immediately. You want to destroy it. Not destroy, Sungmin said. We can't destroy knowledge. But we can set it free. We can overload the core and blow this whole station apart. The shockwave will be massive. That's suicide, Vexrith clicked. We'll all die. Maybe, Yejin said. But we've been working on modified escape pods. They're reinforced and designed to ride the shockwave out of the drift. It's a long shot, but it's possible. Daeho studied the schematic. His military training kicked in. You're talking about turning the station into a bomb. How much time would we have to reach the pods? Maybe 10 minutes after we start the overload, Sungmin said. The collectors will try to stop us. They'll throw everything at us. How many pods do you have? Taesung asked. 8, Heejin replied. More than enough for all of us. Daeho looked around at the other humans. Jiwoo, who'd survived alone for 15 years. Heijin and Sungmin, who'd turned survival into resistance. His sister Bora, who'd never given up even when trapped in the engine room. Taesung, his friend who'd followed him into certain death without hesitation. There's something I don't understand. Daeho said. Why haven't you tried this before? You've had 8 years to plan, Heejin met his eyes. Because it's not just about escaping. We needed enough people to execute it. 2 people can't cover all the necessary points. 3 still isn't enough. But now we have 6 humans and 1 very motivated alien. Now we have a chance. The collectors are machines, Jiwoo added. They think in patterns and probabilities. They've analyzed thousands of species and know how each one reacts to danger. But they've never faced a group of humans working together. They don't understand how we coordinate chaos. Every species they've encountered either fought logically or surrendered logically. Sungmin explained. Humans don't do logical. We do whatever works. We fake attacks, we make noise to cover silence, we run toward danger if it means surviving. The collectors can't predict that. Bora stepped forward. The engine core in this station, it's similar to ship cores. If we overload it, the safety systems will try to compensate. We'd need to sabotage those systems first. Can you do it? Heejin asked. Give me the station schematics in 30 minutes, Bora said confidently. I'll show you exactly where to plant charges. Daeho made his decision. He'd entered the drift to escape death. Now he'd destroy it to ensure escape. It was insane. It was impossible. It was the most human thing he could imagine. All right, he said. Let's blow this place to pieces. But we do it smart. We plan every step. We cover every angle, and we make sure everyone gets to a pod. What about the knowledge? Vexrith asked quietly. The archive contains information about extinct species. Histories that would be lost forever. Should we really destroy that? Jiwoo walked to a computer terminal. I've been copying their database for years. Not all of it, but significant portions. We can take it with us. The galaxy deserves to know what the collectors preserved, even if we have to destroy them to share it. Then we save what we can and destroy the rest, Daeho said. How long until we can start? Heejin checked her equipment. We need to move the pods into position, plant the charges, and hack into the core control system, all while staying hidden from the collectors. I'd say we need 12 hours to prepare. We have 12 hours, Daeho said. After that, the whisper drift becomes history. They got to work. Each person took a task. Bo-ra and Sung-min planned the sabotage points. Heejin and Tae-sung moved the escape pods. Jiwoo copied as much data as she could. Taeho coordinated everything, using his military experience to create a timeline and backup plans. Vexrith watched them work with growing amazement. His species would have spent weeks debating the right course of action. They would have formed committees and discussed every possible outcome. But humans just decided and acted. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. 10 hours later, everything was ready. The charges were planted. The pods were positioned. The data was copied. All that remained was to trigger the overload and run for their lives. Everyone know their roles? Daeho asked. They all nodded. Then let's show the collectors what happens when they harvest the wrong species, Daeho said. Let's strike first. The plan started at exactly midnight station time. Sung-min triggered the first explosion on the station's upper level. The blast tore through 3 decks, sending debris floating through the hangar. Alarms screamed throughout the entire facility. The collectors responded immediately. Dozens of them converged on the explosion site, moving with mechanical precision. But the explosion was just the opening move. On the opposite side of the station, Tae-sung set off another charge. Then another. Then 3 more in quick succession. The collectors split their forces, trying to respond to multiple threats. Their logical programming demanded they investigate each explosion systematically. They're spreading thin, Hyejin said into the comm. She crouched in a corridor near the core access point with Daeho beside her. Bo-ra, how's the sabotage going? Almost done, Bo-ra's voice crackled back. The safety systems are disabled. When the core overloads, nothing will stop it. But Daeho, there's a problem. What problem? Daeho asked, his heart sinking. The overload will take 15 minutes, not 10, Bo-ra explained. The core is bigger than we thought. We'll have less time to reach the pods. Can we still make it? If everything goes perfect, yes, Bo-ra said. But when does anything go perfect? Daeho looked at Heejin. She nodded grimly. They were committed now. No turning back. Everyone, new timeline, Daeho announced over the comm. 15 minutes from core breach to explosion. Adjust your routes accordingly, Jiwoo's voice came through. I'm at the data vault. Copying the last files now. The collectors are starting to realize something's wrong. They're changing their patrol patterns. How long do you need? Daeho asked. 3 minutes, Jiwoo replied. Maybe 4. You've got 5, Daeho said. Then you run with or without the data. He turned to Hyejin. Ready? She pulled out the door override device they'd built from salvaged parts. Ready. Once we open this, the collectors will know exactly where we are. This is the point of no return. We passed that point when we entered the drift, Daeho said. Open it. Heejin activated the device. The massive door to the core chamber slid open with a sound like thunder. Inside, the core pulsed with energy. It was beautiful and terrifying. A sphere of light suspended in the center of a huge chamber, surrounded by technology that humanity wouldn't understand for another 1,000 years. They ran inside. Bo-ra was already there, her hands flying over a control panel. Just a few more commands, she muttered. These systems are complex, but they follow logical patterns. Almost got it. Footsteps echoed in the corridor behind them. Many footsteps. The collectors were coming. How many? Heejin asked, raising her weapon. Daeho checked his motion scanner. 20, maybe more. I can hold them, Heejin said. You protect Bo-ra. She moved to the doorway and started firing. Her shots were precise, aimed at the collector's joints and optical sensors. The creatures slowed but didn't stop. More kept coming, stepping over their damaged companions. Sungmin's voice burst through the comm. I'm at position 3, setting off the big one. A massive explosion rocked the entire station. The lights flickered. The core's energy field wavered. Daeho grabbed a railing to stay upright. That got their attention, Tae-sung laughed over the comm. They're really mad now. I've got at least 30 collectors chasing me. Lead them away from the pod area, Daeho ordered. We need that escape route clear. On it, Tae-sung confirmed. Bo-ra slammed her hand on the final command key. Done, core overload initiated. 15 minutes and counting. The core's light intensified. The energy field expanded, pushing against its containment. Alarms changed pitch, becoming more urgent. Throughout the station, the collectors suddenly stopped their pursuit of Tae-sung and Sung-min. They all turned toward the core chamber. They know, Hyejin said, falling back from the doorway. They're all coming here. Then we leave now, Daeho said. Bora, Jiwoo, head for the pods. Heejin, Sungmin, Taesung, you're with me. We'll hold them off and cover the retreat. I'm staying with you, Bora said firmly. Sister, please, Daeho started. I'm staying, she repeated. You'll need someone who understands these systems. Now stop arguing and start running. They ran. Behind them, the collectors poured into the core chamber. Not just 20 or 30 now, hundreds. The station was throwing everything at them. The group split up, taking different paths to confuse the pursuit. Daeho and Bora ran through a maintenance tunnel. Collectors appeared ahead of them. Daeho fired, dropped two, but more kept coming. Left, Bora shouted, pointing to a side passage. They dove into it, sprinting through the narrow space. Behind them, the collectors followed relentlessly. Over the comm, Daeho heard the others fighting their own battles. Taesung was laughing like a maniac while running. Sungmin was quietly counting his shots. Heejin barked tactical commands. Jiwoo navigated, guiding everyone through the maze of corridors. 10 minutes to explosion, Bora gasped as they ran. They emerged into a larger corridor. Vexrith was there, hovering near one of the escape pod locations. This way, he clicked. The pods are just ahead. 3 collectors blocked their path. Daeho was out of ammunition. He grabbed a piece of metal pipe from the floor and charged. It was stupid. It was suicidal. It was human. He swung the pipe at the first collector's knee joint. The creature stumbled. Bora kicked another one, using the force to push herself past it. Vexrith actually jumped on the third one, wrapping his legs around its head and blocking its sensors. They scrambled past the confused collectors and ran for the pod bay. The escape pods waited in a small hangar. They looked fragile, barely big enough for one person each. The modifications Heejin and Sungmin had made were visible, welded plates of metal creating makeshift armor. Everyone, converge on the pod bay, Daeho called. 8 minutes left. Taesung arrived first, sliding into the bay with collectors right behind him. He dove into a pod. Sungmin came next, his clothes torn and smoking. Jiwoo appeared from a side entrance carrying a data storage device. Where's Heejin? Daeho asked. Here, she called, running into the bay. Blood streamed from a cut on her forehead. They're right behind me. Seal the door. Daeho hit the door control. The heavy blast door started to close. A collector tried to squeeze through. The door crushed it, but more pushed against it from the other side. Into the pods now, Daeho ordered. Everyone scrambled to get in. Daeho made sure Bora was secure, then helped Jiwoo with her data device. Vexrith needed assistance folding his legs into the small space. Taesung was already sealed in, giving thumbs up through the viewport. 5 minutes, Bora called from her pod. The blast door was bending. The collectors were breaking through. Heejin and Sungmin got into their pods. Daeho ran to the last one and climbed inside. The pod was cramped with barely enough room to breathe. He hit the seal button and the door closed with a hiss. Through the viewport, he watched the blast door finally break. Collectors flooded into the bay. They surrounded the pods, trying to find a way to open them. Their glowing eyes pressed against the viewport, staring at the humans inside. One collector moved to a communication panel. A voice filled the pod, synthetic but trying to sound gentle. Why do you resist? We preserve. We protect knowledge. Your species will be remembered forever in our archive. This is not death. This is immortality. Daeho looked at the collector through the viewport. You don't understand. We don't want to be remembered as data. We want to live. We want to be free. And if you won't let us, we'll burn your whole operation down. Illogical, the collector said. You will die. Maybe, Daeho replied. But we'll die free. And you'll die with us. 2 minutes. Bora's voice came through the pod's internal comm. The station shuddered. The core was reaching critical mass. Through the viewports, Daeho could see the lights throughout the station flickering. The collectors stopped trying to open the pods. They stood still, probably communicating with each other, trying to understand what was happening. Launch sequence armed, Hyojin announced. Pods will launch automatically at 1 minute. The collectors finally understood. They'd been outplayed by beings they considered primitive. The harvest had failed. For the first time in thousands of years, the collectors would lose their prey. One collector touched the viewport of Daeho's pod. What are you? It asked. Human, Daeho said simply. Remember that when your archive burns. 30 seconds, Bora counted down. 2015. The station shook violently. The core chamber was breaching. Energy cascaded through the walls. 10, 9, 8. The collectors backed away from the pods, accepting their fate. 7, 6, 5. Deho gripped the harness straps. 4, 3, 2. The explosion began at the core, a blast of pure energy that vaporized everything nearby. 1. Launch. The pods fired simultaneously, shooting out of the station like bullets. Behind them, the Whisper Drift station tore itself apart in a chain reaction of destruction. The shockwave hit the pods, throwing them forward with incredible force. Deho felt like he was being crushed and stretched at the same time. Through the viewport, he watched the station die. It broke into pieces, each piece exploding in turn. Fire consumed everything. The thousands of collected ships, the archive, the collectors, all of it burned in seconds. Deho woke to silence. His body ached everywhere. The pod's emergency lights cast a dim red glow. He tried to move and groaned. Everything hurt, but everything still worked. Status, he croaked into the comm. Static answered him. He tried again. Anyone there? More static. Then a crackle. Deho? It was Bora's voice, weak but alive. I'm here, barely. Taesung? Deho called. Present, his friend replied. My pod's damaged, but I'm breathing. That counts as a win. One by one, the others checked in. Heejin, Sungmin, Ji-woo, and even Vexrith. All 8 pods had survived the explosion. Against all odds, they were alive. Through the viewport, Deho could see they were drifting in normal space. The stars looked right again. No twisted colors, no whispers, no impossible geometry. They'd made it out of the drift. I'm picking up signals, Ji-woo reported. Ships nearby. Galactic Patrol, I think. Within an hour, rescue vessels appeared. They approached the pods cautiously, probably not believing what they were seeing. Ships didn't come out of the Whisper Drift. Everyone knew that. The rescue was efficient and professional. They pulled each pod into a large carrier ship and immediately started medical treatment. Deho was placed on a medical bed, still not quite believing he was safe. A reptilian doctor examined him, clicking her tongue. Remarkable, she said. You survived forces that should have liquefied your organs. Human bodies are more resilient than our records indicate. We're full of surprises, Deho said weakly. Admiral Crispo arrived in the medical bay an hour later. The old reptilian commander looked at the human survivors with an expression Deho couldn't read. Shock, maybe, or disbelief. I've been monitoring the drift boundary for 40 years, Crispo said slowly. In all that time, nothing has ever come out. Now 8 pods appear, and behind them, the drift itself is collapsing. Explain. Deho did. He told the story of the collectors, the harvest, the 15 years Ji-woo survived alone. He explained about Hyejin and Sungmin's resistance, about the plan to overload the core, about the desperate escape. Crispo listened without interrupting. When Deho finished, the admiral was quiet for a long time. You destroyed a phenomenon that existed for 3,000 years. Crispo finally said. You eliminated a threat that claimed thousands of ships and millions of lives. And you did it in less than 24 hours after entering. We got lucky, Deho said. No, Crispo replied firmly. Luck doesn't explain this. Every species that entered the drift accepted it was a death sentence. They fought logically, negotiated logically, and died logically. You humans treated it as a problem to solve, not a fate to accept. The survivors were quarantined for 2 weeks while the galactic authorities investigated their story. Scientists examined the pods. Engineers studied the modifications Hyejin and Sungmin had made. Medical experts scanned the humans repeatedly, trying to understand how they'd survived. Ji-woo's data device became the center of attention. She'd successfully copied massive portions of the collector archive. Information about thousands of extinct species, lost technologies, forgotten histories, knowledge that would take decades to fully analyze. A Galactic Council meeting was called specifically to address the incident. Deho and his crew were summoned to testify. They stood before representatives from dozens of species, all staring at them with mixtures of awe and fear. Council Representative Thelmas, a tall being made of crystalline structures, spoke first. Let us understand correctly. You entered the drift fleeing pirates. You encountered the collectors. Within hours, you organized a resistance. Within a day, you destroyed the entire station. Is this accurate? Yes, Deho confirmed. Why did you not attempt negotiation? Another representative asked. Because negotiation assumes both sides want an agreement, Bora answered. The collectors wanted to harvest us. We wanted to stay alive. There was no middle ground. But surely you could have attempted communication, explained your position, found a peaceful solution, Thelmus insisted. Hyejin stepped forward. With respect, that's what every other species tried. It never worked. The collectors weren't evil, but they weren't negotiating partners either. They were machines following a program. You don't negotiate with a program. You rewrite it or delete it. So you chose violence, a representative said, disapproval in his voice. We chose survival, Sungmin corrected. Violence was just the tool we used. The council debated for hours. Some representatives praised the humans' courage. Others worried about humanity's apparent willingness to destroy rather than submit. All of them struggled with the same question. What did it mean that humans succeeded where every other species failed? During a recess, Vexrith approached Deho. I've been thinking about something, the insectoid said. My people spend years planning before taking action. We analyze every possible outcome, prepare for every contingency, but you humans, you just act. How do you function like that? Deho smiled. We don't overthink. When we see a problem, we solve it. When we see danger, we face it. Maybe we're not as smart as other species, but we're too stubborn to accept impossible. That stubbornness saved us all, Vexrith said quietly. The council eventually reached a decision. The humans would not be punished for destroying the drift. Instead, they would be recognized for eliminating a galactic threat. But more significantly, the council made an unusual offer. Thelmus delivered the news. The galaxy contains many regions like the Whisper Drift, forbidden zones, impossible places, locations we have marked as certain death. Humanity has shown a unique capacity for surviving the unsurvivable. We would like to offer you a position, a special division dedicated to exploring these forbidden zones. Deho looked at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. Why us? Bora asked. Because you don't accept no as an answer, Crisfo said, having joined the meeting. Every species reaches a point where they decide something is impossible and stop trying. Humans apparently don't have that point. You look at impossible situations and say, watch me. It's also useful to have a species that other civilizations find unpredictable, Thelmus added. Your chaos might be the galaxy's best weapon against the unknown. The decision wasn't immediate. The crew needed time to recover, to process what they'd been through. Jiwoo spent weeks working with scientists to decode the collector archive. Hyejin and Sungmin were debriefed by military commanders who wanted to understand their resistance tactics. Bora helped engineers reverse engineer the escape pod modifications. 3 months later, Deho stood at a memorial. The galaxy had built it to honor those lost in the Whisper Drift over 3,000 years. Thousands of names and hundreds of languages covered its surface. Species from across galactic history all remembered now. His crew stood beside him. They'd all been offered comfortable positions. Jiwoo was given a research position at a prestigious university. Hyejin was asked to train special forces. Bora received job offers from every major engineering corporation. Taesung was offered a navigation role in the Galactic Patrol. Sungmin was courted by intelligence agencies. They'd all turned the offers down. So we're really doing this? Taesung asked. Making it our job to fly into death traps? Someone has to, Bora said. And we're apparently good at it, Sungmin added with a grin. The morning steel is repaired and upgraded, Hyejin reported. New shields, better weapons, improved engines. They really want us to survive. Jiwoo looked at the memorial. All these species. All these lives. They died because no one could imagine surviving the impossible. We have a chance to make sure no one else ends up on a wall like this. Deho received the message on his datapad. Another forbidden zone had been identified. Ships were vanishing in the Vex Nebula. The Galactic Patrol was requesting his team specifically. Looks like we have our next assignment, he said, showing them the message. Already? Taesung laughed. We've only been back for 3 months. The universe doesn't take breaks, Hyejin said. They walked to the landing platform where the morning steel waited. The ship looked better than ever, reinforced and ready for anything. Other species' ships gave it a wide berth, as if humanity's chaos might be contagious. As they boarded, Vexrith appeared carrying luggage. Room for one more? You want to come with us? Deho asked, surprised. Into another forbidden zone? I've thought about it carefully, Vexrith said. My species avoids danger and plans meticulously. It makes us stable but boring. I spent one day with humans and experienced more excitement than my entire previous life. I'm in. Your people won't understand, Bora warned. Let them not understand, Vexrith replied. I'd rather be confused and alive than logical and dead. They lifted off, leaving the memorial behind. Below them, the galaxy stretched out. Millions of stars, billions of worlds, and somewhere among them, impossible places waiting to be conquered. Deho opened a communication channel. Morning Steel to Galactic Patrol. We received your message about the Vex Nebula. Tell us what we're facing. Unknown entities, the patrol responded. Energy anomalies. 17 ships lost in the past year. No survivors, no data. We're marking it as forbidden territory. Don't, Deho said. We're on our way. The patrol operator paused. Captain, you understand this is likely a suicide mission?